Millionaire left a $0 tip to test the poor waitress, but her reaction was shocking. Nobody in Millfield had ever seen a car like that parked outside Rosie's counter. It was a gunmetal black luxury sedan, spotless and silent, sitting in the gravel lot like something dropped from a different universe. The lunch crowd noticed it first. Carol from a pharmacy, the two retired railroad men who ate there every Tuesday, a teenage couple sharing a milkshake by the window. They all stopped mid-sentence to stare. Then the door opened and the man stepped out. Before we dive in fully, drop a comment and tell us, what time is it where you are, and where in the world are you watching from? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's go. He was wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than a month's rent on any house in this town. Not flashy, no gold watch, no showboating, just the quiet, devastating confidence of someone who had never once worried about a bill in his life. His name was Dominic Hale, though no one inside Rosie's counter knew that yet. He scanned the diner the way a buyer scans a property he's already decided isn't worth purchasing. Then he chose the corner booth, settled in like he owned the place, and set his phone face down on the table with the practiced calm of a man accustomed to being served. The waitress who walked over to take his order was named Maya Reeves. She was 29 years old and looked 38, not from neglect, but from effort, from the specific exhaustion of someone who had been carrying weight for a very long time without anyone offering to help. Her uniform was the same faded blue she'd worn for 4 years. On her hip, balanced with the ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times, was her 5-year-old son, Eli. He'd been sick the night before, and the babysitter had canceled that morning, and Maya's manager had made it perfectly clear what the consequence of a no-show would be. So Eli came to work. He clutched her shoulder with both hands, big eyes sweeping across the stranger in the corner booth with that pure, unfiltered curiosity that children have before the world teaches them to look away. Maya set Eli down behind the counter with a coloring sheet and a cup of water, then crossed the diner floor with her order pad ready. She smiled. It was a real smile, not fake, not hollow, but worn at the edges like everything else she owned. She introduced herself, recited the specials, and asked what he'd like. Dominic Hale ordered without looking at the menu. The most expensive plate, the premium coffee, a slice of pie. He gave his order the way rich men always do, quickly, as if the act of ordering is already beneath them. Then his eyes settled on her, and something shifted behind them. A calculation, a decision. Neither Maya nor anyone else inside Rosie's counter had any way of knowing that Dominic Hale had a habit. A game, really, one he'd been playing for years in diners and truck stops and small-town restaurants exactly like this one. He would order big. He would watch. And then, at the end, he would write a 0 on the tip line and see what happened. He told himself it was a character test, a way of separating the dignified from the desperate. He never asked himself what the test said about him. The food came out hot and right, served with the kind of quiet professionalism that goes unnoticed until it's gone. Maya moved across the floor like she was running a relay race she couldn't afford to lose, topping off coffee at table 4, catching a dropped fork at table 2, swinging past the counter to check that Eli was still coloring and hadn't wandered. Dominic watched all of it. He watched her hands shake slightly as she lifted the coffee pot. He watched her glance at the manager's office every time Eli made even the smallest sound. He watched her smile at a difficult customer in a way that cost her something. He ate slowly. He observed carefully. And then, when his plate was clean, and his cup was empty, and the check arrived in that little leather folder, he opened his wallet with the deliberate ease of a man making a point. He counted exact change for the meal. He placed it inside. And on the tip line, with a bold, unhurried hand, he wrote a 0. Then he stood, buttoned his jacket, and walked toward the exit, leaving the folder on the table like a verdict. Maya picked it up between 2 other orders. She flipped it open a way she'd done 1,000 times, and for a half-second the world inside that diner simply stopped. She stared at the 0, just stared at it. Around her, the lunch rush kept moving, plates kept clattering, the bell above the kitchen window kept ringing. But for Maya Reeves, standing in the middle of all that noise, everything went still. The zero wasn't just a number. It was a judgment. It was a man in a $1,000 suit looking at everything she was, tired, struggling, her kid in tow at a job that barely paid rent, and deciding she was worth nothing extra. Her chest tightened. Not from anger alone, though the anger was there, hot and immediate. It was something older underneath it, a familiar exhaustion, the kind that comes from being told, over and over in 100 different ways, that you are invisible. The manager clocked it from behind the counter. She saw his eyes drop to the folder, saw his jaw set, saw the look he gave her that said he was already composing a complaint. Nearby customers had noticed too. Whispers moved through the room like a slow fire. Eli looked up from his coloring sheet. He didn't understand money, but he understood his mother's face. Maya closed the folder. She smoothed her uniform. She exhaled through her nose, long and slow and quiet, and then she picked up her son's hand and she walked outside. Dominic Hale was still in the parking lot. He was standing beside his car with his phone raised, but he wasn't looking at it. He'd been waiting. He always waited. That was part of the game, staying close enough to see the fallout, the tears, the furious march across asphalt, the confrontation that would confirm everything he believed about people under pressure. He expected her to crack. Everyone cracked. Maya stopped a few feet away from him. She was holding Eli's hand, and she was holding the receipt, and she was not cracking. She told him, calmly and without a single note of bitterness, that he had forgotten to sign the customer copy. Her voice was even. Not cold, just steady the way a wall is steady. She explained that unsigned receipts created accounting problems for the diner at end of shift. Dominic stared at her. His script had no room for this. He'd prepared for anger, for wounded pride on full display, for the kind of public emotion that would justify his test. He had not prepared for paperwork. He took the receipt. He signed it slowly. And as he handed it back, Maya said the thing that would keep him awake for a very long time. She said, "Tips are blessings, not debts. And a person's dignity isn't something another person's wallet gets to decide." She said it the way you say something you have always known to be true. Quietly, without anger, without any need for him to respond. Then she turned and she walked her son back inside and she went back to work. Dominic Hale did not get in his car. He stood in that gravel parking lot for a long time, his key fob in his hand, and he felt, for the first time in years, possibly decades, genuinely small. Not humbled in the comfortable, self-congratulatory way that successful men sometimes allow themselves on charitable occasions. Small, exposed. The zero he had written felt different now than it had 30 seconds ago. It didn't feel like a test anymore. It felt like a mirror. His mother had worked nights at a laundry facility for 11 years. He used to fall asleep to the sound of her keys in the door at 2 in the morning. He used to see that exact same exhaustion in her face, the exhaustion he had just watched Maya Reeves carry across an entire lunch rush with a 5-year-old on her hip and a manager waiting to blame her for something. He had seen it, he had measured it, and then he had written a zero. When had he become this man? He genuinely did not know. He walked back inside. The lunch rush was thinning. Maya was clearing table 6 when she heard the door and looked up. Something in his face stopped her. The arrogance was gone. What was left was harder to name, a rawness, almost sheepish, that sat wrong on his expensive features. He crossed the diner without acknowledging the stares. He stopped at the counter. He set down a thick envelope beside the receipt book, and then he spoke quietly enough that only she and Eli and the manager could hear. He said he had grown up watching his mother work shifts like this one. He said he'd told himself, once, that he would never forget what that looked like. He said he had forgotten. He said the zero was the proof of that, and he was sorry for it. The manager went very still. Eli looked at the envelope with wide eyes. Maya looked at Dominic Hale for a long moment. Then she opened the envelope. Inside was more cash than she'd see in 3 months of shifts. Enough to cover rent, enough to cover Eli's school fees, enough to buy her a few weeks where she wasn't counting days until the next paycheck. Beneath the bills was a handwritten note. It said, "I wrote a zero because I forgot what it cost to be you. I'm sorry." Her eyes filled, not with gratitude for the money, though she needed it desperately and would not pretend otherwise. But because someone had finally looked at her life and said, "I see it. I know what this costs you. I was wrong." She didn't collapse into thanks. She didn't perform relief for his benefit. She straightened up, folded the note carefully, and looked at him with the same steady dignity she'd carried across that parking lot. She told him she forgave him. She told him that mattered more than the envelope. The diner was completely silent. Then Carol from a pharmacy started crying, which set off one of the railroad men, which was somehow both absurd and completely appropriate for the moment. Dominic Hale nodded once, slowly, like a man accepting a sentence. He started toward the door. Then he stopped, turned back, and asked Maya her son's name. "Eli," she said. He looked at the boy, at his coloring sheet, at his cup of water, at the way he pressed close to his mother's side without quite letting go, and something moved behind his eyes that was too private to name. He walked out. He got in his car, and this time he drove away. But not the same man who had parked there. In that small diner in Millfield, over a plate of food and a folded receipt, something had been broken open in Dominic Hale that no boardroom, no acquisition, no financial triumph had ever touched. Maya Reeves hadn't asked for his pity, hadn't demanded his respect, hadn't performed her suffering for his inspection. She had simply refused to be less than she was. And that quiet, immovable refusal had undone him completely. The zero on that receipt cost him nothing. What it gave him back was everything. If this story moved you, make sure to like and subscribe for more intriguing stories.